Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Retirement Readiness Podcast. This week, we're talking about cybersecurity. So let's dive in.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland, presented by Prairie View Wealth Partners. Live your 2-comma life.
So we're talking about cybersecurity.
Yes, cybersecurity, something that I feel like
we're nerdy, but you're really nerdy. Are you nerdy enough to know about cybersecurity? And pushed them up with your finger as we started.
As we were doing that. Yeah. So I don't know if we're nerdy enough for this because this is a topic that is constantly changing. We're always seeing stuff that's coming up new.
And I feel like that's why it always works, is because it's constantly changing.
Yeah, I think that if I was ever going to get into another bucbusiness, that would be one that would just make
hacking. It'd just be online trolls.
Well, no, I was thinking more the opposite. I was thinking like how could we help people, because it's always changing. There's always something to be done. But right now, I think what we're seeing is this whole, just the way in which people are able to hack is so crazy. And I think that it only gets worse with the more powerful computers become, because the hackers now have a computer that can throw, a billion passwords a second at a computer to overwhelm it to try to break in, which is really why, in our house, we talk a lot about the pain in the neck it is with passwords.
Right.
We always talk, Katie and I always joke about our mom, because we are brother and sister.
Yeah. Right.
But our mom has her passwords written down on the notepad. And that's all just one variation from the other.
I was going to say, I don't think that I should be part of this conversation, because I am totally here's my password for everything.
Yep.
And I know that is so bad.
Yeah. Well, at least you tape it on the back of your license and leave that.
Yeah. And I just tell people here's my password. Yeah.
But I think that a lot of, as much as some of that stuff gets more frustrating, because every place is but has always said, well, this one has to be 8 characters and nothing special. And this one, 15 characters and
capital letter
and all that stuff. What we're using, and I suggested to all of our clients, is they now have software that allows you to keep your passwords all in one place. 1Password is the one that we personally use.
So it's like an app?
It's an app. Like I said, 1Password is what we use. There's also LastPass. And what those do is, it really makes life a lot easier. You can store your passwords and stuff in those apps, but they will create the password for you. And then when you go to that site, whatever site it is, let's say you want to log into your bank account or your Chase account or whatever, it remembers it. So you just hit autofill and it autofills it for you. So now I can have a unique password for all of my logins. Mm-hmm. It can be 1,000 characters long. I don't care, because the app remembers it. The key is you have to remember that you cannot give that password out. So there's a password to get into that app that you have to keep pretty secure. But
so I know, in theory, that should work. It makes me so nervous to have all your passwords in one spot, because what if that app gets hacked and now all your passwords are hacked?
And I'm not up on it enough to know, but I know that each one of those is blind, right? So if a hacker were to hack in, my understanding is because of the way that the multi-factor authentication works, because of the way that it works with your IP address to your device, that somebody with a separate IP address without 2-factor authentication, they could not get into that unless they could.
I think that 2-factor is really
well, it's huge. If you don't have 2-factor on as much stuff as you possibly can, you need to get that on.
Even though it's so annoying.
It is.
It's worth it.
It's so worth it. And so for us, the way that it works is with these password keeper kinds of apps. And you'll see now your iPhone, if you've got an iPhone, the latest update comes with a password generator, password keeper. I personally don't use that just because it's specific to that device, versus a password keeper software that can be on my laptop. It can be on my phone. It can be anywhere I want it. But what those do is, so I have an app on the phone, but then I can also download the plugin on my web browser. And so you just look it up. It'll be there, say download, and you download it. And then every time I'm on my laptop, if I want to log into something, I log into my 1Password account. and it automatically fills it. I can actually go to the website from 1Password. So if I want to look up how to get into my Schwab account, I type in Schwab, it comes up. I hit the link and it automatically opens, automatically fills it. What's also nice there is like if you're going into a new website that you haven't been before and you're just like logging in for the first time, it recognizes that and it'll ask you, do you want to create a login for this? Do you want us to create a password for this? Like all that kind of stuff. It kind of walks you through it. Yeah.
So maybe you could do, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that sounds great, I don't know where to start. Like, our mom does. When we come over to her house, she says, while you're here, yes. I need you to set up my 1Password for me.
Yes.
So.
I can just imagine with mom, she'll say, I was listening to your podcast and you said that you did that 1Password. I want that. Yeah. Could you get that for me? Yeah.
So maybe your kids or grandkids can help you set it up initially and then.
Which, yes, mom, we will do it. Right? But what happens with that is, which is kind of an added benefit. So once you have that account, you can now choose who you share that with. So like in our family, Sarah and I have the 1Password. So the days of her texting me like, hey, I'm trying to get into the Amazon account, I got locked out or whatever, nice. Those days are gone because now she can just go into 1Password too. And same thing with like the kids. So you can actually create profiles inside of there. So we have one that's just for the whole family, but then we have one where it could just be like, maybe Sarah and I don't want the kids logging into our Schwab account and trading stocks.
Yeah, so maybe not.
Maybe not. And so we could keep that one kind of separated.
Okay.
But the other benefit there is like, so if let's say, Lily, I don't think Lily's part of our 1Password. Now that her and Andrew have their own house and
they have their own 1Password.
Yeah, that's right. But if Lily's like, hey, Dad, what's your whatever thing? I can actually send her a secure link so that I don't have to text her, here's my password or any of that stuff. She gets a secure link because anytime you text something or send an email, think about that like you're sending a postcard. If you wouldn't want to put it on a postcard, don't send it in an email and don't send it via text message because every server that goes through is visible as it goes across the web. And so like what we would used to do is Lily would say, or somebody would say, hey, Dad, what's the Amazon username and password? So I would text them the username. Right. Then I'd send them an email with half of the password. Exactly. Then send them a different text with a different, like other half. And it's like,
here's a clue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I spy with my little heart. Yeah. And so by doing that, it's kind of secured our entire, ecosystem, if you will, of passwords. And it's made life easier because now I don't have to remember. I'm not at the office. I'm like, oh, crumb, I have that written down at home or whatever. It's all right there always.
So even beyond that, like more simple than that, even like bring it to the basics of if you get an email from somebody you don't know, don't click. Just delete. Just delete it. Like don't even open it. Don't even, if it looks funny, it is funny.
Well,
like,
and the thing of that is that, like if it's important,
They'll get in touch with you. They'll
send another one. They'll send you a letter. They will like all that stuff. So if you don't recognize it, and a great way to do this. So a little trick, like, so if you get something that says Chase fraud alert, you have to go in and update your account. Go to the email address who sent it.
The sender.
Click on the sender. It might say Chase as the default name. Click on it though and see what is the actual email address.
If it's user7867 at gmail.com or at
worldfromoverseas.com.
Yes, like, exactly.
It's not good, right? Just delete it. Don't even pay attention to it. If you get something that seems like alarming, like your account's been hacked, you must act now. It's a lie. Yeah. Like they're trying to scare you. If your
the scarier it seems,
yes, the more the
faker it is.
The faker it is. And what's crazy with that now is with some of this generative AI that's out, we're going to start seeing things that are a lot
more real looking.
And so things like they'll probably be able to pretty quickly troll your socials and send things that seem like it's directed to you.
They'll know your family names or
all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're gonna have to be even more diligent. If I don't recognize it, if it seems like it's funky, just delete it. If it's that important, they will get a hold of you another way. And places like the IRS never contact you via email.
And even text messages. We get spam texts now too. It's not just emails.
Yeah.
So
and
there's always one that says like, oh, your package was unable to be delivered. And it looks pretty legit.
Yeah.
But the same thing, like, well, they'll try again tomorrow if the package was unable to be delivered.
Well, it's like anymore, Amazon's at your house 4 times a day.
Exactly.
They can figure out how to get hold of you, right?
You know your Amazon driver.
Yes. And so you're right, Katie. Like those things are super important. And the other thing that is important too that you might not think about, and we have this conversation at home quite a bit. We've got a Nest at home. But I guess let me back up for 1 second. Personally, I'm an anti-Big Brother person. Like I don't have Alexa, I don't have Siri, because all of those things are tracking all of my movements, all of my stuff. And so the smaller digital footprint, in my opinion, the less that I have vulnerabilities. But the one thing we do have is we have a smart thermostat, which is kind of nice when we're sitting on the couch and says like, I'm kind of chilly and I can change the thermostat from the couch on the app. That's kind of nice. But like she'll get frustrated because say, this is so dumb. I got logged out of the app again. Now I have to get logged back in. Why do I even need a password to get into my thermostat
app? Right.
Well, one thing to know or to think about is that is an access point. So what that means is if somebody outside of your house was sitting in the curb and they could hack your thermostat, they now have entered your network. Everything on your network now is something that they can get into. So that computer that you have that's plugged in, that's always up, that is on the internet, even when you're sleeping, they can get into that computer now because they accessed it through that app. And when you think about how many smart devices are in your home, you probably have more than you think. Your new garage door opener that came with the app that you can open it. That has access to your network. Those cameras, the Arlo or Ring cameras that are around the house, those have access to your network. And so, if this was how do I go completely make sure that I'm completely protected? All of those would be on separated on your network. So like your cameras, if somebody accessed your cameras, they could only access your cameras. It was a separate part of your network, kind of separated on there. It could be the same router, same modem, that stuff, but you'd have a different network. Just like when you pull it up and say, what do I log into? Which network do I log into? You could set up multiple networks within one network.
Kind of like how when you go to a business, there's like people that work there Wi-Fi and then a guest Wi-Fi.
Yep. And the reason they do that is because they don't want to have a public Wi-Fi or a guest Wi-Fi that then could have access to their network and see what's going on there. Same thing at hotels, right? You go, they've got the guest network and the non. And so if we're really talking cybersecurity and we're really talking about how do I protect some of those things, it would be inside of your home, have some separate networks for maybe your smart devices on one thing and your really important stuff on a different network. And then having passwords that are extremely strong, that are not repeated. Like we're talking. So the way a lot of times hackers will get in is they'll have a computer that just fires, like I said, like 1 million passwords a second.
See what hits
at your device. And it kind of overwhelms it. And then sometimes they'll see, oh, it worked. Well, once they figure out that your password's big sexy 1 2 3, then they're like,
that would be the first thing they would try for you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
That would be too obvious.
Wait, did I just tell my password on a podcast? Oh no, we'll have to change that. Now it'll be 1 2 3 4. Right. So, but like once they know that that's what, then it's like they've got an in. And so,
well, and something I'm really bad about, like you have to set up a password for every single thing you do. And I'm really bad at like, I have to set up an account when I get Dylan's haircut. When I book him an appointment, I have to set up a stupid account. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, great. This password has to have 5 special characters, 5 uppercase. And I'm like, for a freaking haircut. Like, this is so annoying.
Yep.
But so I'm really bad at like, if it's something that feels silly, like I don't care if a hacker hacks my son's haircut account.
Yep.
But that's not the part you have to be worried about.
Yep.
It's not the haircut.
Ancillary, that's right.
It's they can get into your haircut account and then opens the door to other things.
Yep.
So I'm really bad at I have to remind myself okay, it's not about this haircut account. I have to do a good password because it doesn't. So it doesn't.
Next time you take Dylan and he comes back with the
somebody hacked my account.
They change your preferences in the haircut account. That's a pretty fancy haircut place. Do they let him sit on a tractor still, or
Yes.
Okay.
Well, he gets his choice: fire truck, police car,
awesome,
taxi cab. But who knows what a taxi is?
Yeah. It's so funny. Take a little side note. We never do that on these podcasts. Right. But you talk about taxis, and when we're talking about security and even talking about technology, Sarah and I were just talking the other day. I've done a lot of travel this fall just for business conferences and different stuff. And probably 90% of the time I'm taking a cab. And the reason is because I get off the plane, and depending on what airport, if you go to LAX or San Francisco, the Uber stand is across the airport. By the time I order the Uber, it says it's going to be there in 10 minutes. Or I can walk out and sitting at the curb as a cab that I can sit in, and I can be at the hotel. And so it's
everything's coming full circle.
Totally.
Cut the cable cords. Now we're coming back around.
Yep. 1,000%. It's
like tried and true.
It is.
There was a reason that this was how.
It went to this. Yes. And so even with that cab, now most of those cab companies have their own app. And so you could order a cab, you could pay for the cab, it's all
the same as Uber
but
now.
just like it's Uber, the cab number and who the driver's supposed to be.
Well, this is the best part of innovation. Uber made all these great advances, and now everybody's applying those practices without having to. And now 100%. We can all benefit and kind of circle back to what we. Where we were at,
which ultimately I think is what's going to happen with this whole cybersecurity and identity stuff. It used to be that if somebody got your identity, you were done. For the rest of your life, you're fighting those demons, right? Where I think now it's so ubiquitous that it's not a life-ending thing.
Right.
And when everybody's information is always available, then it's okay, that doesn't have as much value anymore than as much as it used to. And so it's that too is going to come all the way around to.
Well, even if you call Chase and you're this is a fraudulent charge. Okay. Reversed.
Yeah.
It's barely any.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yep. Or Amazon, and you're hey, I got something that I didn't order. And okay, well, you can keep that and tell us what you did order type stuff. So I think just companies, and it's a cost of doing business. And I think people are figuring out.
Well, and even I think it's in Amazon's best interest to also protect your information.
Yep.
They don't want their consumers to think that they're going to share their information and get hacked, or, it's so easy. We just had, Alex noticed 8 camping chairs or something were delivered to somebody in Texas from our Amazon account. Yep. And so he called Amazon right away. They all we had to do was basically reset our password.
Yeah, they were on it.
And it was so easy and nothing, they weren't able to use our credit card elsewhere.
Yep.
It's not they got our credit card information from Amazon.
Yep.
Went to Walmart with it.
And that's how it is. So everything compartmentalized with your information. Everything is put together behind a firewall, or it is scrambled in a way that you can't decode it. And so while we talk cybersecurity and you have to be super vigilant, there are other things that are happening behind the scenes that you probably don't even know that are also helping to protect your information in ways so that you can feel comfortable having this one password type of. I was going to say, it's when you talk about it, it sometimes feels so overwhelming. How can I possibly protect myself? But at the same token, we are so far. There are so many things that we don't need to worry about, that it's not as scary as it seems, or it once was. Yeah. Well, and the other thing that that's hard sometimes for me, and I think for other people too, is it seems like that old system of having a file in a cabinet was way safer than if I have it on the web, whatever that means, right? Or in the cloud, or, all that stuff. But really what we find is one of the ways you can protect yourself is have more and more things digital not paper, because you don't know where that piece of paper ends up, who sees that piece of paper. So like for us in our business, if anybody's going to send us something that is sensitive, like we talked about, don't send it via email. There's ways you can send secure email and we can send it to you and that kind of stuff. But even that is, antiquated. Today, you should have a portal that you can upload directly to the portal, so that you don't ever have to worry about things floating through cyberspace. And so some of the things are, don't send an email with anything that is super specific to you or sensitive, or a text. If there's an attachment from somebody you don't know, first, if there's an email from somebody you don't know, just delete it and don't even look at it. But if you were to open the email, definitely don't open the attachment. The attachment
or
has
follow a link.
Exactly. If you have somebody who's asking you to upload something, whether it be for a mortgage, a credit card, a financial institution, your accountant, any of those things, they should not be asking you to do that via email. Even via secure email, they should really be saying, here's my portal, upload it to my portal. It's going to be way better for you to do a digital document than to tell them, oh, can I just bring it into your office type of thing? Just scan it and upload it is way more secure than any other method. So
Alex and I recently closed on, we were selling our house, in Piatone.
Another change? Another move?
No, same thing. Same
one. Okay.
And on it was closing day, and our lawyer his secretary emailed and was like, oh, actually, he forgot this one piece. He needs you to give him both of your social security numbers. Here's his cell phone number. Just call him and give him it said text him your social security numbers. And we were like, okay, no. I mean, first of all, just no.
Yeah.
But also random last day, you're emailing saying, oh, just text him this number.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, you hear about this all the time, that especially with real estate transactions, wire transfers, all that stuff. So Alex was Alex immediately calls the number or, whatever. And is like, who is who is this? It was just so bizarre to me that's crazy. It's 2024 and you're telling us in an email to text both of our social security numbers to a number that we don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, that's scary. It was legit.
That's crazy.
But first of all, that's a terrible practice.
Yes.
That a lawyer's going to.
Well, and that's why you need to be vigilant on it, right? So even things like when I go to the doctor's office and they ask for my social. They don't need my social.
Right.
There's no reason they need to have that on file.
Right.
And so unless it's absolutely necessary, do not give it away.
I just felt like that was it felt so crummy because I mean, I feel like the older generation is targeted, first of all, but if that your lawyer should be a trusted
1,000% that you would expect,
okay, I trust what he's telling me to do. Yep. And that was really bad advice.
That was terrible. Yeah.
And I just feel like,
well, and go back to the example, would you put that on a postcard?
Right.
Would you ever write on a postcard
both of your social security numbers texted to a number you don't know?
Yeah.
That was just so crazy to me.
Yeah.
And our friends recently, they bought a house, maybe about a couple years ago now. But and same thing, going back and forth about closing details. The day of the closing, in the email chain, they got a spam email. Somebody hacked that email chain and switched the wire instructions to be there. Luckily, I mean, the email address, he was on the chain the entire time.
Yeah.
And the email address was off by one letter.
Wow.
And thank God they somehow caught it, but that's real.
Well, and what's crazy is you have the same thing that even happens to legitimate businesses, where they will, in the course of business, get a notification that says, hey, we need money wired. And we've had CFOs of rather large companies that we do business with, they're clients of ours, that said, we had the wire ready to go.
It's crazy.
And luckily we had this second
double check. Yeah.
That caught it. And so as a normal citizen, it would be very easy to sometimes get duped in that. And so that's why, when in doubt, just reach out. You get a funny email and you're like, wait, did this come from?
Yeah. Pick up the phone.
Pair of you, just give me a call. And
verify.
Let's talk about it. Don't. And that's also why sometimes I think people can get a little frustrated in the financial world when they're like, hey, I need this money to go out, and they send me an email. And I'm like, that's great, but Rachel's got to call you tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, I just send it up. No, I know it's a pain in the neck, just like having two-factor authentication is a pain in the neck. But for your own protection, we need to do those things.
So land the plane for us.
Land the plane. So just be careful, be diligent. Don't send anything through email or text that you wouldn't put on a postcard. Don't open anything from somebody that you don't know who it is. Definitely don't click any links or attachments. If you get something and it's questionable, when in doubt, reach out. Just make a phone call and make sure that the people that are sending it are actually sending it. Make sure your passwords are strong passwords. If you can't remember those, get a password keeper. Just be diligent.
Okay.
All right.
Now we're all experts on cybersecurity.
Well, yeah. And I'm the dummy. So everything I just told you probably is like everybody else is like in the cyber world. They're like, okay.
Yeah. They're sharing it because they're making their lives easier.
Yeah, for sure. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this week's episode. For more information, head to the website pv-wp.com. Be well.
The Retirement Readiness Podcast with Tim Regan and Katie Umland. Presented by Prairie View Wealth Partners. Live your 2 life. Learn more at pv-wp.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Retirement Readiness Podcast on your preferred podcast platform.